Okay, successfully selling HUD homes. This is going to give you a soup to nuts background on everything, and at the end of the program, or we can open up the questions, but it should actually thoroughly go through each and every one of them. I might go a little bit fast just because I'm used to the material, so stop at any time and I'll go back and you can ask me questions about it. More than likely though, as we get into the deck, it's more or less going to answer the questions for you. Sage Acquisitions put this together, and as a listing broker, every single quarter we're out educating different agents, new agents from different companies, just not my own, about successfully selling HUD homes. On the screen you see different numbers and letters. We're going to be concentrating on 8A today. That's on the Florida region. Also includes Puerto Rico and a few others. But anyway, to get started, welcome to Sage Acquisitions. It's an asset management company contracted by HUD to manage the sales process of HUD in 26 states and U.S. territories. Areas defined as 7A, 8A we're in, 4A, 1D, 1P, 3P, and 5P. And all those definitions are outlined by HUD. Sage Acquisitions reaches out to real estate professionals across the nation with the goal of just moving HUD homes. Objective today is intro to HUD, if you don't already know it, showing and advertising, the bidding processes, the HUD contract package itself, under contract properties, closings, and to gain full understanding of the whole sales process. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, section 1, intro to HUD. This will give you a breakdown. You've got the HUD Ownership Center, you've got the Mortgage Compliance Manager, the Field Services Manager, Asset Manager, which is Sage, and then a local listing broker, which I'm one of. The Field Service Manager is the one that goes out and changes out the locks. They make sure it's cleaned out. They take thorough pictures of it. His pictures, he does a report, and I have to also go out and take pictures, and they both have to match. He does a report, and I got to do a report. I review his report, and so on and so forth, but they've got to match exactly so there's not any missing items. These properties are consistently being checked, make sure that nobody's in there, they're not broken into, but Field Services Manager, if I ever have an issue, I have to call them first so they can come out and make sure that it's safe. Here's the process simply. FHA claim, essentially you get foreclosed on. The mortgage receives property, ensures the condition to make sure it's a marketable condition. They send it out to the field service to inspect and make sure it's safe and secure, and they clear it out. And then the asset manager ensures market condition again. So you've got 4 different stops before it comes through. And you can see all along there it can get, with quality control, anytime that none of these make it, they'll actually kick it back. And in some cases, they'll actually repair the property so it is marketable. Because HUD is one of the largest property owners in the U.S., but they're not able to sell them themselves, which is kind of interesting. That's why you have asset managers. They get such a big collection of it, but they can't resell it themselves. So you've got so many different checks for quality. Because the HUD program itself was designed to make it easier for first-time home buyers to get a better deal and get into a house. That's really the whole general concept of HUD. So that's why when it first comes out, it's always offered to owner-occupants because ideally they want every single one of these filled with people. And that's really why it's designed. You have one nationwide contractor, information systems network, and it's based out of Oklahoma City. So everything's going to pass through there. Performs a variety of pre, post, and convenience services to ensure that the HUD interests are protected. Guidance to the mortgage regarding claims and anything against the property. So they're going to do the research prior to shooting it out to make sure the liens are covered, the water bills are taken care of. And so anytime we get to closing and it's not clean and there's not zero balances across the board, we've got to ship it back out there. And usually it's taken care of. You might see an HOA get missed, but normally it's pretty clean. One contract per state. Identify your field service manager on the contracts tab. That's really for me. Field service provides property maintenance and preservation services. Now, if you sell a property, a HUD property, and you're going back and forth and checking it out with your client, doing the inspections, or perhaps you've got a handyman coming with you, the first thing you do is would contact me, and then I'd contact the field service manager to make sure that nothing has changed since you sold it. Asset manager and markets the sales process and properties. They're kind of, HUD's the end-all be-all, but the asset manager itself, Sage, is in charge to make sure that the contracts and all of us are doing our job. To make it the field service managers are doing the checklist, and I'm doing the checklist, so we're all taking pictures, and it's all uploaded and doing it in a system. And it's uploaded in their system, and we also have to upload it in the HUD system. So there's actually a lot of different paperwork that's going through that's got to match through, and at the end of the week, they cross-reference each and every one of them. So it's kind of, there's a lot of duplication, but it is the government, so, but we duplicate what we put in Sage's system that we also put in the HUD system. So we can actually see ahead of time what properties are coming down the pipe from here to 4 months out. That wouldn't be visible to most people. So I can see actually what stage it's in, and actually they've got a column to see where the title's at too. So it's kind of interesting to see what's coming down the pipe. This just defines which the asset manager regions. You can see again, it's Florida's is 8A, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Responsibilities of me listed on the MLS, most appropriate mainstream MLS in the area. I use Pro, place a yard and a sign. We can't do, I can't self-advertise on HUD properties. They're very strict on how the actual sign reads. It's got to have the Sage Rider, it's got to have the HUDHomestore.com on it. It can have my logo on it, but it can't say Matt Bailey. It can only say my company and a phone number to be reached. And in some cases, depending on where you're at, they actually make you put an 800 number so they can track it through that system too. I provide routine inspection reports, customer service information, make sure that you get all the information you possibly can. And then when you do sell it, I actually have to hand-to-hand deliver it to the title company unless you have one in-house like I believe you guys do. So depending on who's selling it. Selling agents, which is you guys, play a crucial role in the success of the HUD's program. Keep your eyes and ears open because we want to hear from you and your feedback. Any real estate licensed agent can sell a HUD house. Brokerages, non-individual selling agents that actually register of HUD. Bob, I know, has the NAID number. That always comes up because when people do have their own individual brokerages, they're not realizing that they don't have, they have the number, but it's actually not set up through the HUD system, and it's kind of lengthy. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks. So if the property's due on Tuesday and you just realize that you're not through, that's really what becomes a problem.
Let me chime in on there real quick, just so everybody in this room knows at least 7 people at least know you have to register yourself as a bidder on the site. Okay, you don't just register or try to log in as Bob, because what will happen is if you win the bid, the email is going to go to Bob, and Bob doesn't like getting those. So you won't know that you won the bid. So make sure you register, and you know you did it because it gives you a login. If you didn't log in, do not bid on anything. So make sure you log into the site and register yourself, and they'll give you a login, and log into the site and bid on properties.
Yeah, as soon as you
register under our NAID number, but
right.
You still get your own personal login. It takes 2 seconds.
Yeah, because we've got to fill a form, and it goes directly to, and I run this too a lot. It's like, and when you do the government form in there, you're actually in the HUD system under your broker's ID. Yeah. So out of the 800 people you have, if you start bidding in there and I see it, usually I'll pick up on it because I know Jim so well. I'm like, if I see Bob's come across because I know where he's at, I kind of just like forward it on to them. So I'm like, nope, they didn't individually do it. And then at the end of the day, everything's getting credited to Bob because I can't kick it out of the system unless you rebid it. So you're not getting credit for the sale in the system either, so you can't merchandise that. So something to think of when you leave for today. Register your principal broker needs to be registered. He already did it, so you don't have to worry about that. The process does take pretty lengthy, and that's why I just have to point it out. But just individually register yourselves today. That takes like minutes. Expectation, quality, obviously, professionalism, communication with the buyers, everything that's involved. we just don't want to leave anything unsaid when they're going to these HUD foreclosures. People have a lot of different questions because it's a repo as to usually like safety, is there sinkholes, there's all types of disclosures that I've got available to us that we have reports on this. So it's just trying to be as transparent as possible so that people know what they're getting involved with. And it's pretty simplistic anyways. What is a HUD home? Any house. I've seen $400,000 houses, $300,000 houses. I mean, right now we're sitting on one in Palm Harbor. It's like $277. So I mean, it could be anything. So definition: 1 to 4 unit single family residence is acquired as a result of a foreclosure on FHA insured mortgage. They're sold as is, and they can be in anywhere. Some are move-in, and lots of them are not. As is, no warranties, guarantees, or representations about the property, FHA insurable or otherwise. No repairs except safe, secure, and marketable. Buyers allowed and encouraged to get home inspections. And buyers, it says do not typically acquire. They don't. They don't. I don't even know why that's in there. Who can buy? Anyone. Owner-occupants, investors, government agencies, and nonprofits. They're doing it differently this go around. They used to actually have it come out. They used to have agents listed under the government agencies and HUD, nonprofit, but nobody gets paid if you do that. So the biggest complaint was, why would I list a property, go through all these exercises, and then we're not getting paid? So what they do is they offer that out on the site before they kick it back to us. But they usually give us a heads up ahead of time to say, wait 10 days before we pop it into the owner-occupants category so you're not running around. Owner-occupants giving priority during this, certain cycles must occupy the property for 1 year. That's why it's tracked by Social Security number. That's why they check it. They're gonna check through your taxes. It is the government, so they'll know right away if it switches. So that's why whenever it's like, well, why do you need my Social Security number? Well, because they're gonna track to make sure you're not buying owner-occupant properties over and over and over again, because it throws up red flags when you do it again. Investors, there's no restriction at all. They can buy as many as they want. Property tells you now this is pretty tricky. The lottery round, and I get this a lot, when it goes to Good Neighbor program, it's really, and the best politically correct way to say this is that they're really, really, really bad. So when they do a lottery round or they do a Good Neighbor next door, they're looking at like police officers, they're looking at non-for-profit, like they're like a safe house and things of that nature. So whenever you see that, more than likely is, I would say, less desirable area, or the property itself is just not ready for probably what you guys are dealing with on a normal basis. So I would actually have to give you a heads up on that, because some people come through and go, can we do the Good Neighbor program on this, $100 down? I'm like, no, you understand that program is designed around very urban areas, whereas they're going to utilize that for something like they're going to put a police officer or a fireman close by in that area so they can secure the safety of it. That's what it's for. Let's go through it. The $100 down. That's why it's just, when I see the $100 down, I get asked about that a lot. It's a farce. Whatever mortgage you're working with, he's going to let you know what you can put down and you cannot put down. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. Or if you get any questions about that, that's really your answer. It's going to be in a revitalization area. So it's typically not going to be what you guys will be showing anyway. They have to bid 100%. For a government or nonprofit agency or a government employee, there's a high incentive for them to be there, but in the same respect, I've been doing this almost 20 years and I've only seen like 2 of these. Chicago has a lot more than here, but Florida, it's scarce. It's pretty rare that you're going to see any of this come through. First look, the same thing. Stabilization project to help cities, counties, and states deal with community problems that are a result of the mortgage foreclosure crisis. Again, this is dealing with downtown areas like Chicago, or you're looking downtown Philadelphia and places like that. Home incentives, $100 down, available to owner-occupant properties. Now what you actually have to do is talk to your lender, but the buyer themselves have to qualify for it, not the house. So that's the most important thing. The house doesn't matter when it comes to the $100 down incentives, when you actually run across that, but it's the buyer themselves. They got to meet a credit criteria, which is pretty high, and also an income level is pretty high. Get connected. Okay, so Sage has a calendar of events, actually education in the area. They'll actually list open houses too. If you don't see it on the MLS, go to sageacquisitions.com and you look for the updates, registrations. You can look for other events. The board has quite a bit of them. Other sites, you can look at hub.gov, but Sage Acquisitions and the HUD Home Store are really the places you want to be. The HUD Home Store has everything on there, especially the addendums. Sage Acquisitions has the forms if they're not available. And of course, social media, because usually all of us are pushing it out to LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and give you updates on that. And outreach events, which is what we're doing today. What is Sage Acquisitions all about? It's news, announcements, like I just said. You got training and events calendars. So if you want to know of another event, they will cover different subjects. So you can go to that and see what's available in the area. Autofill contracts, as I said from the beginning, and additional contracts that aren't typical. HUD Home Store, become a HUD registered, signing up for a selling agent account, as Jim mentioned earlier. Showing and advertising. All registered selling agents can show and advertise any HUD property. I'll say it again, any HUD property that's listed, you guys can advertise as your own. Except for in the MLS. Okay? You can do Craigslist, you can do, which is pretty interesting with the guidelines. It's just that most people don't realize that, because if you have one or two listings, you can actually go through HUD Home Store by county and pick up all those pictures and then light up your website, your Twitter, your Facebook feed, anything you want, you're available to do.
Don't take the pictures from the MLS. Those are copyrighted.
Yeah, don't do the MLS.
They own those. Once they're put in there, they own them.
There's pictures on the HUDHomestore.com, and you can just lift them off there, and you can put them on Craigslist as free, and then put them everywhere else. So, I mean, there's a great opportunity there to make you look like you have a lot more than you actually do. So I would recommend when you leave here, just start going through counties that are close by your houses and your areas where you guys service. Start doing that.
Let me ask on this one, are there any, say I set up a auto search emailer to go to me for new listings, are there any word restrictions, like just listed, anything we cannot use in a description that we need to?
There is. I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to get right to that.
I would assume that an agent can go out and take their own photos, right?
They could, yeah.
So if you want to get like professional photos and make them look really nice and try to, for your website, so you don't, have, I would assume that probably not the most professional ones.
Well, what happens is that when we first go out there, we try to take pretty good photos, but for an example is, I might get one like tonight, and I'll have to rush out there because it's due tomorrow by 2. So it's like you're not always getting the best photos that are sent through. You try to, but I mean, when you're out in the field and you've got to get out there because the turnaround is so fast, they're not so great. But yeah, once they shrink them down so heavily that they're so pixel, it's just, they're bad, they're distorted. So yeah, to your point, yeah, if you see one you really, really like and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I'd go out there and take photos, upload it on, and you're allowed to do that. And you actually don't even have to ask for permission to do it. As long as your wording is verbatim, and there's some keywords that you can't use when you're actually advertising it, but as long as your description's the same, you should be fine, because there's a case number in there, as long as that's out there and gives you the information. So just copy whatever's in the MLS for your description when you're putting it out there. And then if you see anything out there, you can report non-compliance if you see someone that's advertising it goofy, and we'll get to that point. Obviously, advertise in a professional manner. You have to use the equal housing when you're dealing with it. If you're actually doing like pictures and flyers and things of that nature, you actually use the equal housing symbol, not on your websites and what have you. But then you can't imply exclusivity. You say HUD house for sale, but you can't imply that it's just yours or what have you, because someone else might be doing it too. Here's the wording part. You have to refer to them as HUD home, HUD acquired, or simply for sale. You can't refer to them as distressed, foreclosed, government, must sell, repossessed, or any other adjectives that would make them seem negative. So it's kind of a fine line. I think when you say HUD homes, people understand, I would hope, but at the same respect, they're trying to get away from saying repos. They don't want to attract people to the property, because in a couple meetings I've had, that's simply what the problem was is that once you put repossessed on a HUD property, you're kind of letting it available to kids or what have you to vandalize it. Okay, do not place signage in HUD property yards. You can do directionals by the property. Actually, every single one they've got, there's directionals with your phone number. You can go to, where is it we go for signs?
Anywhere.
That one?
I mean,
Well, you can get corrugated signs with your information, your website.
Fast signs is one.
Fast signs is what I do. A lot of people will do HUD home, and they'll put blank spot, and they'll put the address and their stuff underneath it. So, and I've seen people do that quite a bit. I know this one gal that resells a lot of mine. There's like directionals all the way up until I get to the property. But anyways, that's fine. I mean, she's following the rules.
Property, but it can be on the neighbor's property if they're okay with it.
Well, yeah, they could be on the corners, right? If you're doing directional, sure, you can do it on the corners, and if they're not paying attention, yeah, you will. Yeah.
We'll be going down to Brooksville.
Yeah, there's like a 20% loss on that, but yeah, you can do it though.
like an 80% up in Newport Richie.
Yeah.
There's a sign patrol up there.
I swear there is.
No, there is a guy. There's a guy that
guy just takes it?
He's a white pickup truck, and he's like a count or a city
Oh, man.
official, or he's like from the city of Newport Richie, and it says like sign something, and he goes around and picks them all out of it anywhere right of ways.
That's
in
your.
the middle of your open house, your signs will disappear.
Oh.
You gotta get a permit.
Nice. All right, so limit directionals. Don't be excessive, but you can do it, and it does work.
Can you use like a sign back on the directional? No?
No, it's gotta be HUD owned.
Okay.
It's gotta be that.
It's gotta
You
be.
gotta make new signs.
Yeah, you gotta do HUD owned, HUD acquired. I had to make signs too because I had HUD repo, and
Well, the
then
old way used to be HUD foreclosure.
yeah, it used to be HUD foreclosure. It used to be.
they got rid of that.
They got rid of that, yeah. And then when you do, just make sure you have a little Eagle Housing logo on there.
Does everybody know why you gotta have that?
By law.
Very simple. You don't have, well, unless you gotta do it by the regulations, but on all your advertising, your business cards, your signs, whatever, if you put that on there, then it's up to the other person, the responsibility shifts. It's up to the other person to prove you were discriminating. If you don't have it on there, it's up to you to prove you weren't discriminating.
Right.
So you'd rather be on the offense or defense, yeah. You don't want to have to prove it. You'd rather just be quiet and let them talk and try to prove you were discriminating against you in a court of law. So if you put it on all your advertising, that's why we have it in the offices, because that means our office is equal housing.
And fast signs, they'll spit out stickers too if you don't already have them on your thing. So if you've got a bunch of corrugated, so you don't have to go out and buy new ones, just get the stickers and throw them up there. So you always have to include HUDHomestore.com on them, and then also sageacquisitions.com. You have to follow the same rules that I do. Adhere, obviously, to anything federal, state, county, city, and real estate commission advertising regulations, as well as compliance with the Truth in Lending Act when you're advertising HUD properties. Showing guideline, whenever you show a HUD house, you have to do a sign-in sheet. There's a sign-in sheet always available. We take pictures of those. We have to note it because we've got to tell them how many people have been through the properties, and they both have to match. So typically, if somebody's going to show the property and I know they're in there, I'll have to sign, or I don't sign for you, but I'll note that which agent was in there because I've got to take pictures of it and put it in there. All right, now, no open houses now.
I heard that changed.
It did change. Now Jim and I were discussing this last evening. The difference between that is simply because people were abusing it. It's the same thing with the sign thing, is that I'd be going to go do an open house on the property and someone is already doing an open house on the property. You can't essentially just kick somebody off of it to do it. You actually can do it on mine, but you actually have to get permission from the other brokers. It was just getting completely out of hand with that, where they were taking signs and things of that nature. So it's simply just professionalism. We're talking about, it could be a 4-hour showing. You can be doing it. So anytime you see mine on there, it's fine. Another agents, they may restrict it to their offices, just depending on their rules. But that's why that's up there, not because it's the end-all be-all, but it's just simply if you're going to do a 4-hour showing, that's fine. But most people just don't want it to get abused. That's all. And always secure it, obviously, when you leave. Accessing HUD houses, they're all going to have combos on it because we've got to let so many different people through there. You've got You get the lawn guys, you get the field service guys. I've got to go through, the appraiser's got to go through there. We've got to do 2 BPOs a month that they're not selling, so we can go back to them. And then ultimately the HUD actually tells us what price to do. I mean, I could tell them 150 all day and they still will list it for 200. So, but that's that's what's happening. So if it gets listed and you think I'm crazy, it's not me. They're telling us what price to put on it. We do BPAs all the time. So fair housing, I hope you're familiar with this. Bidding on HUD houses. It's easy and it's free. Again, register as a bidder in the top right corner on the top. We'll need your broker's active NAID number to set up this account, which Jim has, and then you can log in an account later when you begin the bidding process. And I'll give you a history of what you've done. Finding properties, Sage has a HUD home store link. Unlisted properties owned by HUDs, not necessarily. This might be come into play with the government properties and or new properties that they acquire, but almost every single one that I've seen come out has been already listed. So if you really are dying for unlisted properties, just call me up. They're kind of slow moving right now because the transition just occurred in April, so it's just a huge backlog. I mean, there's so many sitting out there to close, and they're giving you free extensions after extensions because they just don't have they weren't used to the volume. Because you gotta remember, there are 3 asset managers in this area. Now there's only 1, and they're based out of Atlanta. So, list codes: insured, uninsured, HOA, flood area, late base paint, and insured escrow. HUD will fund up to $4,000. Stabilization. Or 203K, and actually they just raised that. I want to say it's up to 10 now. Get familiar with FHA, insured with escrow. Now you guys are familiar with insured escrow, right? Okay, well, they're insured escrow. Here's the difference with 203B loan. Whenever someone sees insured with escrow, they think they're getting that money back, and they're not. In order to get that FHA loan, that's how much dollars in repairs that you have to do, and you're giving receipts for it back to the mortgage company so you're able to get the FHA. So it's completely the opposite. It's very confusing to people. They think that when they get to closing and they're upset that they're going to get a $5,000 check back, and they realize, no, you actually have to do the work, $5,000, because that's not thoroughly explained to them. So whenever you see insured escrow, it's for an FHA loan, but you've got to pay that $5,000 in repairs with receipts after closing and give them to your mortgage, whoever is holding the mortgage, Ocwen or what have you, so that you can actually have that type of loan. That's what that's for. Best thing for you to do, though, if you see an insured escrow HUD property, just simply take the points. Take $5,000 worth of points, so when they do go to close, then they can utilize that $5,000. Did that make sense?
No. I'm sorry.
There's actually a column when you're actually going through the bid, you can actually take points in every single property.
Okay.
HUD only looks at nets. They don't really care about what's going on in those 2 areas. So if you're going to see the escrow amount, typically I tell people, if the escrow amount is $5,000, utilize that for points. Ask for HUD to pay closing points of $5,000. So then they actually are getting money at closing. Because if you don't put that in there, that's what they're going to be owing in repairs in order to get that done. And uninsured is simply conventional loan or cash. And repair escrow only applies to the 203B financing. It's not a gift from HUD. And then you can get a list of required repairs. And they're pretty thorough on that, and you'll see it right on their exam. And sometimes they're so minor, it's unbelievable. Bidding periods, properties will list daily. Lottery properties include special programs, general market listing and all our properties, sealed bid or exclusive bidding. Bids will accumulate over the length of time of the bidding period and will be reviewed the day after the close of the bidding. They open them all up at the same time. Daily bidding or extended bidding, individual 24-hour bidding periods. Interesting enough, though, you'll have a bidding period that'll end at, say, on Tuesday at midnight, okay? And it goes to daily investors. Or it might go to daily owner occupants, but by that Sunday night at 11 p.m., it switches. So if you're actually sitting around waiting for it to switch to investor, you're going to sit up on a Sunday night and wait for it to go from Because in that hour's time, and I've seen it happen, you can just shove your bid in as an investor, and you're the first one and only one in it. If that makes sense. So instead of waiting for the next day, if you have an investor, you're like, oh, I'm going to wait for the period to be done. It doesn't allow you to put them in there. But I'm telling you, the day before it expires, that hour window, that's the tip. It's you put it in there because it'll appear real fast. You shove it in there, else you want it. So, and there's very few people that know that that's happening. But like I will sit there at night waiting, watching movies, and then all of a sudden it'll pop up, or I'll set up an alarm because I'm a pretty early sleeper. So, and then there it is, boom, investors pop it in, and then I'll get calls and complaints. It's supposed to be investors say, no, it's gone. Where'd it go? And so, anyways, that's why. So if you really, really like one, give me a call, and then even if it's not mine, ask me what day it is. I'll take a look at it, and I'll tell you which Sunday it's going to populate, or even usually Sunday, Monday, or no, it's usually Sunday, Tuesday, or Thursday that it happens, and I'll take a look at it. Lottery rounds, this is before market. That's again for the nonprofits. General market listings, you've got 15 days for owner-occupant exclusive. You've got the first 10 days are sealed bidding process, and it's a daily bid. And that's what I'm telling you. Then after that 15th day, that's the day that it opens up. On the 16th day, but the truth is that it really comes out that night. So whenever you see the owner-occupant days, just look for the date on it, and it's actually going to be that night that's going to flip over to the investors.
The night of the 15th day, or
the night of the
15th day?
I'll double check on that, Jim. I can't remember if it's the night of the 15th day or the night of the 16th day, but it's just so quick that it comes through that it's out.
You said at 11?
It's like 11:20, something like that, yeah. They used to let you just put it in either way, as an investor and or occupant, so you wouldn't have to worry about the shift. But now how they've got it set up is that you couldn't even put it in as an investor if you wanted to, because that area isn't highlighted. And then uninsured properties, 5 days owner-occupant exclusive sealed bidding, and all bids allowed on 6 days. So it's a little bit shorter when you've got a conventional loan as opposed to an FHA loan. HUD Home Store, how to search for properties and the property condition reports. So there are property condition reports on each and every HUD property, because what they do is they fire up everything on it, electrical, everything that they've got. They shoot water through the lines to make sure exactly what is going on before you see it. Bid deadlines, contracts. HUD homes are sold via online electronic bidding process only. The only way to buy a HUD home, and the only reason this is because back in the day you actually have to drive it downtown. But now they don't even bother with that. So.
About tells the stories.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have to, it was the old, what is it, where you get the press? Carbon copy. Yeah, we had to do that and then drive it downtown, and then they'd open up, and then.
He's just telling us the story.
Oh my God.
Sprinkled up in a sink in the HUD home, and he opened it up, and he goes, they're like, what should we bid? He goes, well, $1 more than that.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Well, it's like when someone will send it to me, and I'm like, oh my God, and I have a buyer for it. I'm like, shit. I'm like, I feel so bad, you know, I'm like, and I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, well, I don't want to see it. Every time it's like, when I see it, I'm like, well, due diligence, I should never have seen it anyway, but there it is, right, exactly. You're looking at net, though. You can actually revise your commission on these HUD homes, too. So you don't actually, it'll populate for you, but you can actually change it. Like sometimes I'll change it to like a goofy number, or if they're like, no, I'm only going to bid 100 for this, I'll maybe like do something weird with the commission, so I'll actually a couple dollars more, because people don't realize that you can manipulate that as well. Because nobody thinks like, well, I'm going to save $10 to make 3, but that's pretty much $3,000. That's pretty much what you're trying to do.
That's so that they can see their net?
Yeah, because that's all they care about is net.
So you can change yours to 2.9%.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever.
Whatever it is, right. Yeah, it auto-populates at 3%, but yeah, you can change it to wherever you want. Complete the sales package before your buyer, before the bid. A lot of times it's on the run, but the buyer's signature is your permission to place a bid on their behalf. If the offer is accepted, you have 2 business days to get the entire contract over to Sage Acquisitions, a copy of the earnest money pre-qual, and then all the originals. Bid submit online, and then the bid lines, we'll go through them. Offer price, type of financing, uninsured, insured or fast close. The closing costs, if they're going to ask for any of them. The agent commission, On your end, the listing agent will always, that can't be manipulated, but the closing costs and your commission can be manipulated, and then you're always looking at net to HUD. They'll pay up to 3% of the purchase price of any property for the points I mentioned earlier. So if you get insured escrow, they'll allow up to 3%. That's the closing cost line, and then obviously the commission line will auto-populate with the 3%. But again, the manipulation is that HUD will allow up to 3%, so you can go to 2.9, 2.8, whatever you think is going to make you get if it's a competitive property in a competitive area. Closing costs, prepaids, auto paid by HUD. HUD will pay proration of the taxes, any special assessments, HOA fees, utility bills, transfer fees, costs to provide the documentation, repair, hold, escrow, and then recording fees and deed only. Those are all the costs that will be taken care of from them. They do pay quite a bit. Sometimes you'll run across maybe a trailer, maybe a piece of land, and then there's always going to be a minimum commission because they don't want you going out there. If it's $10,000, 3%, obviously it just doesn't make sense for you. But on any HUD property, there is a minimum of $1,000 that they'll give you. So there's at least some incentive for you to actually to bid on the property. And that has changed because it wasn't always that way. So you'd be stuck with a trailer way out in Lakeland and it's $25,000. Nobody wants to show it because they're not getting paid enough on it. So they'll do minimums on them now, which I was glad to see before because it's like, yeah. It's kind of like a rental. It's like, see the $100, you're like, yeah, I'll be right on that. Yeah, you're charging $3,000 a month and you're gonna pay me $100. I'm like, okay. You better be related or I really like you. All right, so remember price is the indicator if the HUD home store is incorrectly marked as a listing as ineligible for the appropriate commission. Make sure to contact the asset manager or me before placing the bid. You want to make sure you want to get paid for what you're doing. Because sometimes it's not a perfect system, and I've seen glitches where I have to actually call down and say it's not calculating correctly for this agent, and we'll fix it out for you. Bids can be submitted 24/7, but they're not reviewed on federal holidays or weekends. So you can bid Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it doesn't matter. It's the same thing if you bid it either day. They're all going to be open at the same time. Bid deadlines always at straight before midnight. There's no time preference. They don't care. Again, how they bids are grouped with the previous day's bids. Winning bids are selected automatically by HUD system. All they're doing is clipping at the bottom. They've got a line that goes across and it'll hit it. If it doesn't hit anything, then it goes to the next. Now what they'll do is they auto counter you. And what they'll do is they'll auto counter you, and I'll get that to a little bit. You can withdraw it at any time up until the midnight prior to, and it's really easy just to cancel, and there's no penalty for it. When you're submitting the bid, they're going to ask you to review it again. They're going to give you a confirmation number. You can print that up or just write it down because it's always going to be, if you're registered, you can always look that back up and the forms are always there. I'm copied on every single emails that are sent to you, even for cancellations. Usually I'll guide people through the cancellation process and ensure that your buyer and you get your escrow back to you. So make sure if you're going to cancel for any reason whatsoever, because there's a lot of forms that we have to fill out on the opposite end, that you make sure that listing broker knows it, because we've got to send it through a certain way for them to list it and get it back. Rarely have I seen them take the escrows back. They spit them out. As long as your communication's the key, as long as you're letting know that listing broker, then they'll go through it. And it's no big deal to us, because usually the backup bid's already in there. And so if you cancel, usually it won't come back out anyway. On the bid deadline day, all offers are reviewed the same regardless, and again, either accepted or rejected, or you're going to start seeing a counteroffer email. Some people get annoyed because it's just automatic and it just keeps coming, but don't block it, because once it's as accepted by somebody else, you'll stop getting those emails. So it's just an automated system, and there's nothing we can do about it, and it's annoying. I get like 3 or 4 of them a day, and there's nothing I can do about it until those actual properties go under contract. They just keep on getting spitted out. Counteroffers, again, they're going to give the threshold, and I'll give that to you before we're done. Because everyone's always asked what's the percentages and everything else with that, and I'll give it to you. And they've changed that as well. Contract package, there's lots of forms to fill out, but again, you don't have to go through each and every one of these. The most important thing for you is you're going to need a letter from the lender, qualification or pre-approval, and you're going to need a certified funds made out to your title agents. Everything else in here, there's an auto population form. As long as you do that first page, it'll fill all out for you. You don't really have to do anything. All you have to do is hit print or save. Then you can send it off to your buyer. And again, it doesn't have to be original signatures. You just simply can do a electronic signature over email. There it is, autofill software. Complete the contract and click the documents, signatures before placing the bid. Let's see, buyer select. This is one thing that they have changed, is buyer select. So the buyer simply is going to take your opinion unless they're dying to go with their own particular title company. I'm telling you ahead of time though, your title company, whoever they choose, there's actually a form, and a lot of them around here actually have, like Total Title, you guys have it. It's already filled out for you because they've got their own NAD number and they've got to have a signature number. When you get out of here, look at Total Title. Or look at look at Island Title would be the best example I could think of right now. You'll see the forms in the top, and that's the form they're referring to, the buyer select closing agent. And if your title company is not a buyer select closing agent, go somewhere else because they will not understand the process and it just holds you up from getting paid at closing. So go to Island Title, you'll see it. The form's under too, and like I said, Jim, I think they've got it too. And again, they must have a title ID. The same thing as you have to have a NAID number. Not that we're getting it and all this other stuff, no. They actually have to have it that day because you have to have a signature from the title company. Escrow deposits, $500 for sales prices under $50,000 for over. Selling agent responsible for delivering the escrow money on all awarded bids to the listing broker. Usually we're going to meet you out to it, or you can drop it off to the office, and then we have to provide bring it to the title company so we can get the receipt so we can upload it into our system. So we'll ensure that we get the escrow to it, and we'll be ensure that Sage, the asset manager, is notified. Common areas, social security numbers. They've got to match because they're going to check their driver's license. They're going to run everything on them. Exact name for buyers, how they want it entitled. Signatures in blue ink, they used to be confusing because the black looked like, but you don't necessarily have to use blue. So don't worry too much about that. If you're out in the field and you only have a black pen, it's like Jim Carrey, this is a black pen. You're like, it's blue. No, that doesn't matter, don't worry about that. One thing that's not on there though is the buyer's name. You have to put comma if they're single, married. Just remember that. Because I don't know why they don't have it on here, but they'll get kicked out if you don't have a comma next to telling you about the buyer. If it's just John Doe single, John Doe married, that's all they want to know, married or single.
You have both names?
Even if you don't have both names, because it's just John Doe buying it, they just want to know if he's married or not. Or she's married, Jane Doe. But that's one, I don't know why it's not on there, but that's a big common area, because the hardest thing to get the HUD is the first page of the contract, because that's got to be the original. The rest of them, they'll take faxes, they'll take emails, they'll take scans, but the first page, that's the one where it's like everything's on it, and I don't know why they don't have it on there, but that's the most important piece. That's the hardest one if you get a buyer that goes out of town, because that's the only one they care about that's got to be original, is the first page.
On the bluing thing, you said we could do electronic?
Yes. Yep. Can't use whiteout, it's got to be original. I mean, some of it's just, yeah, it's like, some of it's so repetitive.
Regular contracts too. No,
Yeah.
no white out. That's white out.
Yes. I know, right? It's
People
like,
ask me in the office, you got any white out? I'm like, are you serious?
there's no microwave on there.
Yeah.
Upon receipt of the winning bid from Sage, listing broker will contact the selling agent, and usually what I'll do is I'll say, shoot me over the contract that you've got. I'll review it too before I send it off, because I don't want to get kicked back for something stupid, and usually it's that single married thing that's not ever been mentioned. because we see a lot of these consistently. And importantly, you've got to just print it off and overnight it so that it's there within 2 days of notification. Then you'll get an email saying they've gotten everything. Accepted offers, you're on top. Sage Acquisitions, 7,000 Central Parkway, Suite 80, 800. Because I don't have to see it, I just have to see the escrow. They're going to send me back, kick me back the executed contract, and you'll get it as well. So that's why I don't typically need all the paperwork, which is nice. We used to have an original ourselves. So my attic's been cut back in space. Contract corrections, they'll actually itemize it for you, exactly what you missed or what you didn't miss. The addendums, again, besides the first page, you can send them through email. There's different addendums. You have to change financing, maybe something changed, or perhaps the appraisal came back, or you have to do something, or they want to change loans. They've got an addendum for that, or perhaps they bid on the property now that the lender wants to add the wife or the girlfriend or the dude or whatever to the contract. They've got that available. If you want to change it to a corporation, except for owner occupants, you can do that too. So there's a lot of different ways to change it. It's not set in stone. They're there and flexible for you. Change financing. Now, when you go from the 203K to any other methods like of conventional or cash, you do lose 15 days. For an example, all HUD houses from execution, you have 45 days to close it. If you change from the financing from the 203K to any other method, it goes down to 30. Isn't that big of a deal, but something you want to point out, which just because if you're going to hit that 31 days, because it's a little bit more difficult of a loan to get, that's all. Lead-based paint and termite must be ordered 5 to 7 business days for inspection, and then lead-based paint. Not really seeing a lot of that. The termite inspection maybe, but as soon as you get the contract back, those days are based upon when it was executed by HUD, not when you sent it in. So I mean, you might not get the contract back for 2 weeks because they're so backlogged, but as soon as you get it back, that day is going to actually also incorporate your home inspections too. So don't worry about the time when you put it through. The cost of the lead-based paint and termite are obviously absorbed by the buyer, as is a home inspection or any other inspection that they have. Changing and financing, properties built 1978, that's usually pointed out to you. Name changes, that's a pretty quick fix. Escrow changes, repair escrow is sole discretion of the lender. Lender might have a different, they might come back with a different repair escrow than HUD has, and I have seen that. So there's an addendum for that to be submitted for whatever lender requires a different, because they're all different. HUD bases it on a general formula, but when you're going through different lenders, depending on you, yourself, or how they qualify the property, that repair escrow may change. So there's a little bit of surprises out there. You know, you says 1,200 and the lender says it's 18, but HUD says, you know, it says right here it's 1,200. That does happen. It just depends on the lender. You chose the lender. He or she's saying it's $1,800, even though HUD says it's $1,200 because they're doing the minimal cost, remember. But this person's looking for cosmetics because they may be living there. You know, that's what it costs for them to do it. So that it's kind of a gray area. They're just setting a price out there, but the lenders might change that just simply on how they're going to get the loan done. So it's a little bit of a fuzzy part, but I just don't want your buyer to be angry because they're seeing one number and then you're giving them another one. They're like, well, what do you mean? You told me this. So like, well, no, you chose the lender, or this is what they need. This is what HUD says they need, but if your lender needs this for it, that's why it's a gray area on that. Now, this isn't always as true as the buyer type because people try to come in there and like, oh, I meant to, as an investor, that's what they're talking about there. You can't do that at all. Amendments take 72 hours to process. It takes a little bit longer than that just because it's the government. They've got to see it and Sage has to see it, so it takes a little bit longer. So there's a little bit of a lag time on most of the times when you're changing stuff. And I know that the mortgage brokers want it right now, it's just not happening. Line must reflect the office of closing of the transaction. When you actually see the HUD contract, you simply have to type in the title company that you are utilizing. It can't be to be determined, it's got to be the actual title company that you're doing. Because again, the other form is, so if you're showing any type of HUD property, know right away which title you're going to use because you're going to actually be involved with it. What I do if the buyer changes my buyer select, you pick it for them, and then they've got a buddy that's a title company or somebody refers them to it. You can just simply submit a new addendum, make sure they've got that title line, submit the license and e-insurance. It's a big to-do if you want to switch it, but in the same respect, it's doable. They'll do it. But yeah, the trouble is that we got to go collect the earnest money. They got to give it back to us. So I mean, it's just like they're trying to cover everything for you guys. I'm sorry. I want to tell you. Home inspections are optional. Highly recommended. You got 15-day due diligence after, like I said, when you get it back, whenever they execute the property. You're allowed to do a home inspection. There's a form for that, so you might just get authorization for the home inspection to get the utilities turned on. Now that is the buyer's responsibility. They'll take their credit card. Usually it's $100 to $200 to have everything turned on because in some cases they've got to be winterized or there's problems and all that, but that's basically, if you're going to have the home inspection done, it's going to be an extra $100 and they turn the utilities back on. It's just an added expense that's floating out there just so you're aware of it. Termite letters, stipulations for HUD to provide termite letters, they do. They'll let you know if they're out there or not. And they will fund the termite repairs for that. The property does not meet the conditions that it actually said it was in. So if you find out that it's got termites, they said it didn't, then it's their responsibility to make sure that's alleviated. Lead-based paint. Requested field service inspections through the AM P260, which is our portal we go through. They'll make sure, and this does not pertain to you guys, just simply tells the field service managers that if there's lead-based paint in the home, it's up to them to repair it before we put it out on the market. To inquire about the status of any of the reports of the property, you can always, and Jim will have a copy of this, you can always send it and you'll put the case number and the address in the subject line, and then you'll ask your question from that. If you want to inquire any kind of reports for the property that you don't see or you think there's more to it, you can send an email to that, but it's got to have the case number. It's usually a 093 number and the address, and it gets done like that. They'll shoot it right back to you. And vandalism forms, you can let us know, or you can send it directly to them. Usually you let us know, the field service manager that does the area, he's really good about it. He'll get there pretty quick. That's going around so that they'll actually have to do, then it goes up to HUD and back down, so it's easier. If you see it vandalized, just contact the listing broker and we'll contact the field service agent. You cannot repair it prior to closing or moving in. Now this is important because I ran into one where if we just would repair the electrical box, then they can get the loan to get in property. And like normally, if it's a normal sale, you can get away with that. But the problem is that we take so many pictures of these houses that we actually have to show the electric box with the cover, it open, go through. So if you replace it and it deviates for any of the pictures that everyone else has against what I have, it's like I get in trouble, they get in trouble, and then the whole process starts over, so you can't do anything about it. So if you run into a lender that says, well, if we only had a washer and dryer in here, I've seen that where you go in there, but you got to pull it back out. You know what I mean? So if you're going to get the FHA loan and they need a refrigerator in there, well, I mean, it can be done, but you just can't just leave it. You gotta bring it back out to get the thing done. You know what I mean? Or if there's a hole in the wall, repair it and punch it through. But I mean, just like it's, I just can't. I've seen it all, so it's like
I repaired it with me.
I've seen it where they've moved stuff in it, and then they move it to the side, so then the picture looks like there's nothing there. So it's just like it's amazing with people how creative they get to get it in there. You know what I mean? Because that one guy's like, well, there's only 2 wires behind the box, and if they put that together, and I'm just like, cosmetically, will it look any different? Remember I was telling you about that?
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm just attaching a wire. He's an electrician, so I'm like, I'm going to go out there with you and I'll take a look at it. Because I'm not sure what you're going to do. But it literally was 2 wires are out. I'm like, I can't believe your lender wants that. But I'm like, that's fine. But yeah, nothing crazy. Pre-closing activities, closing agent establishes a closing file. You get 5 days. So once everything's set, it's 5 days. It's no longer the 48 hours. So if everything's all set to go on Friday, it's still not going to be until next Friday that it's actually going to close. That's kind of the bite for them. And that's why, again, I encourage you to find out if the title company is certified with HUD, because they're not used to the portal. Because they'll be like, all right, well, it ends on, 31st, and then we just uploaded it today, the 30th. Well, sorry, it's still going to take the 5 days if everything's corrected. Closing agent requests all HOA fees, taxes, and all that. If there's anything out there, they'll pay it. Let's see, cannot pay fees, anything until HUD approves. That's standard. Process handle 1 documents, are used to that. Closings, here we go. FHA conventional, 45. Cash closings have to be in 30 days, and the 203K closings closes in 60 days. Or sooner, depending on how quickly you get done. Here's the extensions. $10 per day, 15-day increments, 150, depending on the house price. You get 225 and all the way up to 375. Extension of purchase and grant in 15-day packages. If the contract doesn't close prior to 15 days, buyer's remaining days will be prorated back to the buyer. So it's not completely lost. So if they need 2 or 3 days, it'll come back to them. Muster fee, again, in certified funds. They don't do with checks.
Now, the extension you asked after the fact that you already had the contract approved and everything, right?
Yeah, if there's an extension, if you go past, if you're on you're on the almost the 45th day and you actually have to go to the 50th day, you go get a $150 or $225, whatever the prices of the HUD. You go get it certified, made out the HUD, but they'll prorate it back to you to get it done. Cool thing is owner occupants, they actually just started this, they'll waive that extension. So if you got owner occupant in that property, that first 15 days waived.
Okay.
And then you've got 2 free extensions for the 203K loans. They've made this easier, and I think simply because of the complaints that came through, and they're still trying to push through the owner occupants to get through there. So they're trying to waive as many fees as they possibly can so they can get people actually physically in those properties. Canceling the contract's pretty easy unless it's just something crazy. It's got to be something really off the wall, or if you're going to closing the day before, it's like a standard contract, and then at that point it's just their choice. But like I said, I haven't seen too many of them unless it was the day before closing where they just keep it. Closing walkthrough is still standard, day before. What happens is once the title company uploads that in the system, and that 5 day is triggered, it triggers me the day before closing I've got to go out there and take 3 pictures to make sure that it's secure, the sign's in the window and everything else. So typically we're going to be out there at the same time, and it's the same thing. The difference is that we can't give you keys anymore. We can't give you keys to closing. You can't take keys out of the lock boxes because those keys are pretty much universal. So we can meet you after closing, we can meet you at closing, but you need to get a locksmith after the fact. You no longer get a key at closing at all. And that's so many times you cannot have those universal keys out there because they're afraid for the safety, because too many people just leave the doorknob on there. They get vandalized because those are like utility keys that everybody's got. So I would just tell you right now, if you do not go out there and buy a $20 doorknob, give it to your buyer as a closing gift, and then because
the Gino from Reiki is $99 all the doors. That's a great closing gift for $99.
Yeah, it really is.
Six locks, $99.
That was a big thing of HUD, because they're like, we don't get keys at closing. No, we should never get keys at closing. These are general contractor keys that you've got like 10,000 people across this county have. You don't know how, and even though it says do not duplicate, they're across, and there's 4 different.
You can do it right at Home Depot.
Yeah, you can.
Do it all the time.
Yeah, you can do it in the machine now.
Okay.
I mean, they're not reading that. Do not duplicate. So yeah, it's just not safe. That's why they press it. There it is, the 5 days prior to closing. So if you get everything perfect, you got to upload the system, it's still 5 days. Post-closing, buyers can now have the utilities activated, permanent use. Selling agent and coordinates to ensure the buyer is able to gain access to property. We have to meet you out there. But again, buyers must have lock-free keys post-closing at their expense. Post-closing timeline, that's not really, it's more for your closing agent, and so is this 2 days after closing, so it's not something that you guys would. So, questions, concerns?
Are you videotaping that?
I am.
So we can watch it on YouTube or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jim's got a copy of this as
I
well.
got a copy of the PowerPoint too. If you You
Oh,
just
yeah.
email me though, don't expect me to remember it.
I'll just ask you.
Yeah.
Here's a tip, I'll give you a tip. Do the advertising on the property, but also it used to be 95% of nets, forever it was that. Whatever was listed at, regardless of what you thought it was or comparables, I like some of them and tell it what it is. Any HUD house you go out there today and you go through the HUD home store, it's 90% is what they'll take the first go around.